it's Sophia, and for today's video I will be giving you guys some advice about Common App essay prompts and for Stanford supplements. I'm not going to read them word for word just because they are a little bit personal for me, but I want to give you guys the best advice I can. So for my Common App essay, the best advice that I can give you guys is really think about something that you're really passionate about, but don't just talk about the thing that you're passionate about. Talk about how that certain activity has made you grow into a better person, or has made you change in a specific way. Maybe your personality changed because of it, maybe your mentality has changed because of it. Just how you've changed as a person overall, because one thing that schools really value is growth over time, like as a person and in your character. So like, let's say freshman year you joined this club and you really love it and you have stuck with it for 4 years and you have noticed a way that your personality has changed a lot. Talk about that. If you want to talk about your family, you can talk about your family and talk about how they have made you a better person. But basically the overall goal of your Common App essay is that you want the admissions officer to be able to kind of get to know you on a personal level without even meeting you. Because the whole goal is to kind of like advocate for yourself, kind of show the admissions officer that you're a good person, that you have values, whatever those values may be, and yeah, just try to overall showcase your personality through your essay. And one tip that I can give you guys with that is don't try to write overly sophisticated because you think that will look good for an admissions officer to read. If you don't normally use very sophisticated words, don't try to use a thesaurus and just put random words that you would never use in your essay, because in a sense the admissions officer will not actually be reading what you normally would write, and then that will kind of take away from your personality as a whole. For like in my essays, I did not use the most sophisticated language at all, because that's not how I speak day to day. And yeah, like just be yourself throughout your whole essay. Don't try to put on a front for an admissions officer just because you think, oh, if I use this word, they'll think I'm smart. Like, that's not your goal. Your goal is to show that you're passionate about something and showcase that throughout your essay. Another piece of advice that I would give you guys is try to focus in on one specific thing that you love doing. Don't try to like show the admissions officers that you're a part of 30 clubs, you're president of like 10, and even though you might be, like in my case, I am president of a lot of clubs, but I didn't necessarily talk about all of those leadership positions in my essay. I just like honed in on one specific one and spoke about that the whole time. So another piece of advice that I could give you guys is that once you're completely done writing your 650 word essay, it doesn't have to be final, it's just something that you think could be presentable to an admissions officer. Bring it to like one of your siblings, your mom or your dad, and have them read it over and see if it truly represents who you are and if your personality is shown throughout the whole thing. In my case, my sister edited my video, edited my essay, and she did make like some suggestions as to what I should change to make it sound more like me.
Yeah, like what you want from like them reading it is basically like to make sure that it's your authentic self, and like that you're shown through it, because that's what like admissions officers want to see, and like they want to see who the real you is. So like that was like what I was trying to help with, and like make sure that like they could see like what I see in my sister and like how like hardworking and stuff. So yeah.
And yeah, so my sister's in 10th grade, and she will be going through this process fairly soon. So I will be here helping her. And yeah, so now I'm going to talk about kind of what the overall theme was in my Common App essay. So I mentioned in a previous video that music was my overall theme throughout my whole application. I'm really involved in so many music things. So I spoke about music in my essay, but I didn't just say, I love music, music is my life. I spoke about how music has made me a better person, and how I kind of like went through like a normal day of mine and like talked about how music is incorporated throughout my life, and kind of using music as like something to calm me down while I'm under pressure, which is so true. Like I use music as an escape from all the hard classes that I've taken throughout high school. And then I spoke about how I hope to incorporate music into my future someday. It's not going to be the main aspect of my future, but I definitely want to keep it in my future. And I talk about how one day if I become a surgeon, I would still want to be a surgeon that is a singer at the same time. So I don't just want to completely neglect my musicality in the future. So I kind of just give admissions officers a sense of who I am, and yeah. So the next thing that I'm going to go over are my Stanford supplements, which in my opinion were the most demanding supplements out of all the schools that I applied to. These supplements were definitely the ones that I worked on the most out of all of my supplements. So the first one is briefly elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities. So for this one, I chose to talk about robotics, and I basically spoke about my experience going to super regionals in Scranton, Pennsylvania with my team, and how we were able to work together to achieve one common goal. And keep in mind, all of these supplements are extremely short. So one piece of advice that I would give you guys is you can write out like a draft, and if it's way over, kind of pick, like let's say if you wrote about multiple things, pick one thing that you want to hone in on and delete the rest of it, and then expand on that one thing. Because if you talk about like 10 different things within your supplement, they're not gonna be able to like delve deep enough into one of those specific topics, because there's only 150 words. Like for this extracurricular activity, obviously you're talking about one extracurricular activity, so that makes it a lot easier. So you have to choose your favorite extracurricular activity or the one that has made the most impact on you. And yeah, the next one is, what is the most significant challenge that society faces today? This one is a 50-word limit, and just think about something that you wish you had the ability to change in our society. I spoke about racial inequality. Some people have spoken about the issues with our environment that we face today. There's so many things that you can speak about. Just think about something that you're really interested in talking about, and it'll be really easy for you to write. The next thing was, how did you spend your last 2 summers? This is also a 50-word limit. So this one I thought was the hardest to get to under 50 words, because last 2 summers I've done so much, and I couldn't really talk about everything that I did the past 2 summers. So I talked about that in 10th grade I went to Beijing, China. That's literally basically all I could write about. I said I went to a summer intensive language study in Beijing, China, where I was able to explore Chinese culture. Then In 11th grade, I went on a community service trip to Hawaii, and I worked at a nursery school. So that's basically all I could write for that. The next one was, what historical moment or event do you wish you could have witnessed? This was also 50 words. And I said that I would have witnessed the moment where Cesar Chavez started using the term si se puede, and the way that I incorporated this to myself was that whenever I'm going through a hard time, I always think about that term and like the motto that has been throughout my life. So I spoke about the fact that I use this like in my everyday life, because we're all gonna encounter hard times, and just the way that I cope with it, or the way that I get through my hard times, is by remembering si se puede, or yes, you can do it. The next thing was, what 5 words best describe you? What I did was I asked the people that are closest to me what they think describes me, and I took the best ones out of those and I used those. The next one is, when the choice is yours, what do you read, listen to, or watch? This is also 50 words, and I said what I love reading, which is romance novels and romance movies. I just told the truth here. Like, I just love watching and reading romance novels, romance movies. The next thing that I spoke about, that I answered, was, name one thing you are looking forward to experiencing at Stanford. So I talked about experiencing the a cappella scene at Stanford, which is something that is like so important for me in college. I really want to be a part of an a cappella group. So I spoke about that. The next thing was, imagine you had an extra hour in the day. How would you spend that time? 50 words. And I just also see, like, everything has a common theme of music. So I answered it saying that I would create music to share with the world, because music has brought joy to me, and I wish to bring joy to others creating music myself. So the next essay that I answered was, the Stanford community is deeply curious and driven to learn in and out of the classroom. Reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. So for this one, I talked about how my experience at a study abroad over the summer in Beijing, China, kind of shaped my view on studying languages and culture throughout college, and how it also made me more curious to learn more about different people's cultures in the extracurricular aspect. So just kind of write about something that has really changed you as a person. Again, same kind of thinking process. Basically, just think about something like that you have seen yourself change tremendously throughout, and then talk about how it changed you and how it changed your academic pathway, in a sense. So yeah, that's basically what I talked about. And the next one, which was my favorite, was write a note to your future roommate that reveals something about you, or that will help your roommate get to know you better. So this is kind of the same thing, like same goal, is to just basically make sure that the admissions officer gets to know you on like a different level than just academics and like your interests. Like, obviously I wrote about my interests in this, but talk about like things that you do at home, like what do you like to eat, what do you like, let's say on a Sunday, like what do you like doing. I spoke about basically just like my interests. I talked about the fact that I'm really socially active. I love going out and meeting new people, and I talked about like the different clubs that I would want to be a part of at Stanford, and try to be specific with this because I mentioned like specific names of clubs that I wanted to be a part of at Stanford. Like I talked about wanting to be involved in Stanford Model United Nations, to continue my interests and involvement in Model Congress in high school. So like try to let them get to know you, and then like transfer that into what you're planning on doing if you are accepted to Stanford. And yeah, so like think about things that make you who you are. And if you didn't mention it in your Common App essay, if you didn't mention it in the rest of your supplements, put it in here, because this can give you kind of like an excuse to talk about like, yeah, like I'm a morning person, I like working out, like just be authentic, like whatever you like to do, talk about it. I think this is the last one. Yeah. So the last supplement is tell us about something that is meaningful to you and why. So I talked about how expressing myself and being confident with myself is meaningful to me, because it lets me be true to myself, and like I kind of like talked about how I've expressed myself throughout my life, and how that has kind of like been a major role in like the things that I do in my life, the way that I act throughout my life, just like things like that. So that's the last Stanford supplement that there is. I know there's a lot of questions to answer, to give you guys a little like idea of how long you guys should take on this, how long you should be editing your essays for. I kind of wrote this, like I wrote the drafts in like a week and a half or 2 weeks, I would say. And then just because I wanted to, like, I tried out so many different topics for each of the supplements. I kind of like tested out how certain topics would work out with the questions, and if they didn't end up working out, I looked for a different topic. And then after that, I kind of like went to my sister, asked her for help. At my school, there's a librarian that helps with essays and college essay like help, things like that. So I went to her. She was really helpful, and she helped me like narrow down the word count, like technical things, grammar. Make sure to like ask your English teacher to read it over for you. Simple things like that. So also for Harvard, what I did, since I loved my roommate essay so much that I wrote for Stanford, I used the same roommate essay and I submitted it to Harvard. So it kind of like killed two birds with one stone, and I got into both of the schools. So maybe the roommate essay was a good one, because they both accepted me. Maybe they really liked my roommate essay. So the main piece of advice that I would give you guys is basically, like, I already said this way before in the video, but like, just to close off, I would say just be authentic throughout your essays. Like, don't put on a front that you think admissions officers would want to see in your application, because in the end, your personality, your life, you want to showcase that throughout your application, and you want to get into your dream school for who you are and what you love doing. You want to be happy reading your essays and saying, so just work hard for it, show who you are throughout your essays, and you will get good results.